There are so many different focal lengths to choose from, but I think 20mm is actually a really good one, because owning a compact 20mm prime lens can replace one of the most popular and expensive lens that most creators rave about, and that's the 16-35 f2.8 zoom lens. And ask yourself this question: how wide is too wide? Personally, I have found that I don't go any wider than 20mm, as anything wider does have too much distortion and the field of view just becomes way too over exaggerated. So in today's video, we'll be talking about where the focal length 20mm fits into photography, cinematography, and also why every creator needs this focal length. And let's just jump right into it with photography. And ironically, I feel this extreme wide angle photography trend has now died. And now the audience really demands something that's more of a neutral field of view, like 28-50mm. But I think having the knowledge to compose a wide angle shot is a very desirable skill to have, and it is also a great way to practice photography, especially in terms of composition. And using a fixed focal length like the 20mm really makes you work for your shot. You know, if you're shooting on, say, the very popular 16-35, it's very easy to start at 20mm and then work your way up to 35 to start to remove those distractions. But just using a prime lens, you're forced to make that focal length work, and that is the best way to improve your composition. I also like to use 20mm for my creative portraiture. I think it's a very dynamic way to exaggerate and using perspective distortion in your images. And one of my favorite photographers that I actually got the pleasure to meet while I was in Japan, Omar, actually uses a 20mm for a lot of his creative portraiture, and I really do like his work. So if you are going to use this lens for portraiture, there's a couple of things to note. And one of them is to definitely center frame your subject, as the corners do become more distorted as you go closer to the corners, and also you get more perspective distortion the closer your subject is to the lens. Lastly, there is a big difference between 20mm and 24mm. Even though it just sounds like 4mm, you actually get a lot more real estate on the wider end than you do on the tighter end. And when shooting with a 20mm, especially on a full frame camera, you can always just crop to 24mm, which is my favorite focal length. And when I go out to take photos, I usually pick the 24mm over the 20mm, unless I plan to do any video work, as 20mm is probably my most used lens for filmmaking, as it's such a fantastic focal length for establishing a scene. And when you pair this with, say, a tighter lens like the 50 or the 85, you can really tell a story with different focal lengths. It's a fantastic talking head lens for video work. You know, if you guys have been subscribed and you're watching my videos here on YouTube, you'll be very familiar with this field of view of 20mm, as pretty much every single one of my videos here on the channel I've shot with this Viltrox 13mm f1.4. This lens is sharp, it has great autofocus, it's built well, and has very minimal distortion, meaning that the in-camera corrections aren't doing anything too aggressive. And Viltrox recently sent me this 20mm f2.8 that's actually a full frame lens. Even though it is tiny, it literally weighs nothing, and it only has a price tag of only $150 USD. Again, this lens is sharp. It does have a little bit of softness in the corners, as it has a little bit of distortion due to the very compact size of this lens. The autofocus is great. I have no complaints at all. And when I put this lens inside my camera sling, I literally forget that I even brought it, because it is so light and small and compact. And when you pair this Viltrox 20mm f2.8 with the very powerful video camera, the SONY ZVE1, this has to be the smallest full frame camera setup you can buy on the market today. 20mm is a good vlogging lens. You know, you can use this at arm reach and get a good field of view with the face being in the center and your surroundings. It's also great for walking. You know, 20mm is quite a wide focal length, so walking with this lens, you're going to get very stable footage, especially when you're pairing it with Sony's active steady shot. I also use 20mm a lot in my commercial work for some creative shots. I've also been enjoying using this lens for wedding X's. You know, I can capture the entire scene and also repurpose this content for vertical Instagram reels. I really do think that 20mm can replace the 16 to 35, as personally for me, I don't need anything wider than 20mm. So 20 to 16mm, I don't need it. For anything tighter than 20mm, I just jump straight to my 24 to 70 and then my 70 to 200. And I have all of the focal lengths covered. Guys, let me know in the comment section, have you tried a 20mm? What's your favorite wide focal lengths? If you guys like how I edit my photos and my videos, I do sell Lightroom presets and also video LUTs, which is linked in the description down below. And I'm gonna get out of here. I am sweating up a storm. You can probably see it here, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.